What's going on, everybody? It is that time again, the Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 93 on this Monday, June 24th, 2024, 67 days from the season opener for Oklahoma against Temple here in a couple of months. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you. Brent Venables got a contract extension. It kind of set the internet on fire for like a day. We'll talk about that. Some other assistants also got extensions. We'll break that down. Tom's here. He's all over it. We're going to lean on him as we go through that. Champion Barbecue was this weekend. Oklahoma already reaping the benefits. They had a nice commit pickup yesterday. We'll break that down a little bit. And then the portal is off and running for both Patty Asso and Skip Johnson. We'll get into that, of course, on the back end as well, as both those teams have made some new additions to their roster. But let's start with the coaching contract stuff. In particular, of course, Brent Venables, who got himself an extension. Now, Tom, I want to go to you right off the top before we get into any kind of reaction about this. When this happened, it was framed as this ginormous extension, which was an overstatement. I think it's fair to say. But I'm going to lean on you. You were there at the Board of Regents meeting down there in Ardmore. You were as on top of this, kind of crunching numbers as well as anyone, doing the math here. Try to put it in context as best you can. I know it's hard because it's confusing, but put it in context as best you can in terms of how many years actually got added to Brent Venables' contract and how much more money is he actually going to make roughly with this new deal?
Yeah, so they basically added 2 years to his contract. So
right.
It's basically framed as a new 6-year contract, whereas he had 4 years left on his deal. He's now under contract through the 2029 season. So that's part one of it. Then the other part is, this broke before, the board actually approved it. So we didn't have the numbers in front of us. All we had heard from ESPN was that it was a significant raise for Brent.
That's the word, like everybody crazy. Yeah.
So when we get the sheet at the end of the meeting, it doesn't have the full numbers, so it requires us doing a little math. It just had the new money that he was making from private funding, which does not include his base salary of $325,000 and an annual $600,000 payment that goes toward his retirement fund. So once we got all of that information and added it all together, it comes out to a 6-year, $51.6 million contract with an average annual value of $8.6 million for the duration of it. He's going to make $8.15 million this year, which is essentially $1 million raise from what he made last year. So that is a significant amount of money. And to kind of put it into a little bit more perspective, I think he was the 17th highest paid coach in college football last year. This year, he's probably going to be around top 12 when all the numbers finally get released for all the other coaches. Because you keep in mind, Nick Saban retired. Kalen DeBoer is going to replace him on that list because he's going to be making $10 million in his first year at Alabama. They made a big investment there. Jim Harbaugh retired, who was the head of Brent Venables. Sean Moore is not going to be making as much. I think he's at $6 million in his first year. So Brent Venables will move ahead there. Mel Tucker's gone from Michigan State. Jonathan Smith, again, making $6 million his first year, so not nearly as much. And then Mike Norvell at Florida State got a big raise after Alabama kind of went after him this offseason. So he's up to 9.8. So he moves ahead of Brent Venables. So Brent will probably be about the 12th highest paid coach in the country this season, but only the 8th highest paid in the SEC probably. Yeah. So he middle of the pack SEC, which kind of makes some sense. I mean, he's a guy, he's going into his third year, coming off a 10-win season. First season wasn't as successful, obviously, but it's an investment from Oklahoma in, they believe that Brent Venables is the future of this program and is going to provide stability. And, as Josh Pate, pointed out on Late Kick this weekend, Oklahoma's administration hasn't really given anybody, a reason to doubt their system here and the way they kind of handle coaches for the last, quarter century. It's been very stable. They've made the right calls. They've invested in people when they need to be invested in. And, this is just them being proactive again. And it's not something that comes as a surprise. If you remember back in January when pretty much all the assistants got a raise and extension, Oklahoma President Joe Harris, said at the time, we're going to start conversations with Brent for a contract extension soon, but he wanted to make sure we took care of the assistants first. So he wanted to get that all taken care of, and they did that. And then they got underway with these discussions, and it finally got approved on Friday down in Ardmore.
Yeah, to me, it just seems like this is an SEC bump. I mean, you're making a move to the SEC. It makes sense. Like you said, Tom, it's not like he's top 12, you said, but just 8th in the SEC. And Oklahoma has a lot of confidence. They are very steadfast in their belief in the direction that this is going with Brent Venables. Adding on 2 years, it's really just kind of, to me, it seemed very, routine. I'm trying to find the right word. It just makes sense. Like, this is very normal. This is not as crazy as kind of was made out to be. James, what about you as far as just your reaction to, they add Brent Venables, they give him this 2-year little bump here. He gets a little pay increase. Like I said, just seems like kind of another show of faith in that, we feel good about the way this is going with Venables at the helm and the direction this is all kind of moving.
Honestly, I didn't understand the outrage even regarding what we didn't know about the numbers. Like, you got a guy that's coming in, and this is a guy that's done a really, really good job just recruiting. Based off of the results that he had in his first year, you thought, okay, this could turn a different way. But then to have that 10-3 season, to be able to recruit off of that now and bring all these guys in, and we're talking about top 10, top 5 classes in the next couple of cycles that they're aiming for. It didn't make much sense why there was such a backlash about it, because this seems like a guy that can recruit and do the things that he needs to do, especially in the way that college football is today. Like, recruiting is, obviously it's the biggest thing right now. Is how can you convince guys about a big picture about playing for your program in your university? And that's seems to be he's done a really good job of that. So that's what I say, because the results have already shown themselves when he had a team that he actually recruited himself. With the 10-3 season, he actually helped more with that team than he did the first team. So I thought it all made sense to me. As you said, it made sense to do this type of move.
Well, yeah. What the answer really there is what is lacking often with college football Twitter and media, frankly, sometimes is just nuance in general. Because when this happens, all anybody does is throw the record in your face of whatever it is, 16-10, and that's all anybody can get past, ignoring, like you just said, the recruiting moving the way it is, the fact that first year he's trying to Brent Venables, Lincoln Riley, Alex Grinch. Brent Venables trying to coach and win his way with a roster built by those guys. That's the definition of square peg round hole. You have to give him some time, and so I think just the complete lack of absorbing what's actually happening, just looking at the record, is very surface level when analyzing this thing.
Yeah, and this is again them further investing in the football program to remain competitive in this new landscape that they're moving into in a week's time in the SEC. Not only is Brent Venables getting the raise, but they're continuing to invest in his coaching staff and the support staff. They officially made Curtis Lofton the general manager now. He's getting a considerable pay bump to, I think, $300,000 now, and he's basically going to be the guy that's kind of overseeing roster management and personnel, and just kind of helping with talent acquisition, talent retention, recruiting, all that, having a hand in NIL as much as he can. They just launched a new collective to have everything all under one roof. They're taking steps in the direction to remain competitive in what will be a much more difficult league and a much more difficult landscape to compete in moving forward.
Yeah, and just showing that, just the university showing that they are invested in Brent Venables, investing in his staff. The recruits can see that as well. Like, that helps in recruiting. This guy should be here at least through, if you commit now, through your entire college career, if so be it. And so I think that just helps out a lot more. You don't have to worry about, is this coach actually going to be here when I leave, or if he's going to be here for me and everything's like that. He's going to be there now. It all seems to make much sense to me.
Yeah, no, it is. It's just a show of faith in the direction, and they are still completely, fully behind Brent Venables. Nothing has changed these last couple of years. Probably the funniest, and it's so college football. I kind of love it, but it's just hilarious. Was the victory laps being taken specifically by Texas Twitter? It's like, did we not watch that Cotton Bowl last year? I believe Oklahoma won that game, so that was kind of a funny thing. It just stoking the rivalry and everything, but it was a weird day on Twitter, certainly. elsewhere, I mean, DeMarco Murray, Miguel Chavis also got extensions and raises. Tom, again, you're all over this stuff. Talk about that a little bit in terms of what happened for those two guys at two positions that have, certainly been a couple of strengths for Oklahoma, and the recruiting side of it as well. But what about for those guys? DeMarco and Miguel Chavis also kind of getting locked in here.
Yeah, this is kind of just the end of the falling of the dominoes from the coaching cycle, which kind of had 2 or 3 different peaks and valleys this all season with the way the movement kind of went. Because you remember back in January, DeMarco and Miguel both got raises with pretty much the rest of the staff. And then more changes start happening through the spring. You'll remember back in March, Ohio State made a run to DeMarco Murray to fill its running backs coach position. I can't remember which team, but there was a Big Ten team that I think showed interest in Miguel Chavis for a role. So this is them kind of rewarding both of them and being able to retain them and maintain that continuity, which, athletic director Joe Castiglione said is, very important. They're very glad they were able to retain these guys. DeMarco's getting, both of them are getting an additional year on their contracts. So they're under contract through 2026 now. DeMarco's getting a salary bump from $575,000 to $800,000 this year, $850,000 next year, and $875,000 in that final year. Miguel Chavis is going from $650,000 this year to $690,000 this year, and then $740,000 each of the next 2 seasons. So they're both getting a nice little pay bump and some job security there for kind of showing. They showed their loyalty to Oklahoma in sticking with it. Obviously, Miguel Chavis has deep ties to Brent Venables. They were together at Clemson. DeMarco Murray, Oklahoma. He is Oklahoma football in a sense. So they're showing loyalty to the program, to Brent Venables. And Oklahoma's just kind of reciprocating that and rewarding them for it, and being able to maintain that entire staff. I mean, Oklahoma did not lose anybody on this staff other than the coordinators, and one of them got a head coaching job, and the other one, it was Brent's decision to kind of let Ted Roof go his own way and bring in his own guy to kind of add to that defensive continuity moving forward with Zach Alley.
Mm-hmm. I mean, adding DeMarco, I mean, you get another raise for DeMarco Murray. Remember, we talked about it. He was a guy that was possibly, had a chance to go somewhere else with a different contract. And so doubling down on that now, it seems that they really like what he's done so far. And obviously he's an OU alum and things like that. So there's always going to be that movement for him. So I think it just makes sense. Like we said earlier, it just all makes sense because as we talked about, the recruits can see that. And a lot of times it's position coaches that are moving on during the middle of a kid's tenure throughout his college time. So locking those guys down, securing them there, it just helps out all the way around. So.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note. Obviously, we mentioned Ohio State with DeMarco Murray. They made a run at him in March. But, Joe C. said, top 15 programs were going after multiple of Oklahoma's assistants. Mm-hmm. So for them to be able to kind of stave those programs off, programs that you as Oklahoma are hoping to compete against for, a spot in this new 12-team college football playoff, you're not allowing them to kind of get that strength, and you're maintaining your own strength in the process. So again, just being able to keep that continuity, I think, is huge for this program moving into the SEC.
Which is why some fans should ignore the Twitter banters and things like that. If other programs are seeing what Oklahoma's doing, I mean, it shows right there. So,
right, absolutely. So there you have it. Taking care of the coaching staff a little bit, and again, the whole thing. We talked about Brent Venables, but the whole thing is really kind of an affirmation of the way it's moving. A lot of belief up top in the direction of the whole thing right now. So continue to get SEC ready, like Tom kind of alluded to. 1 week from today is when it becomes official, July 1st, which is pretty nuts. It's been just years in the making, and we're here next Monday. They can officially make that move. You guys saw the SEC logo painted on the field and things like that over the weekend. It's kind of surreal still. SC Media Days are just a couple weeks away. It's about that time. So pretty cool. Speaking of guys who should get raises, you probably should get another one, Emma Jones. So we've sang the praise of Emma Jones a lot on this show, both three of us, along with Colin Kennedy, certainly.
Yeah.
And for good reason, because it seems like every couple of weeks at least we have something positive to talk about again. And here we go again. Champion Barbecue was over the weekend. Oklahoma is on the board with their first commit coming out of the barbecue public one, which was Emmanuel Choice, Manny Choice, as he's known, 3-star wideout. He's the 4th wide receiver of the class, picked up for Emmett Jones. This wide receiver group that he's putting together in 2025 is outrageous, and it may not be done. We'll talk about that in a second. But another nice pickup here with Emmanuel Choice. He talked about it with 24/7 Sports yesterday. Great exclusive story on the website. I think Colin wrote. OU was his first D1 offer. Mm-hmm. So Emmett Jones recognized that early, and that was a big factor in him in deciding down the road that OU had that faith in him early before anybody else did. So just another one, again, in the win column for Emmett Jones there. Another good get. Wide receiver groups coming together. What can you say? Emmett Jones just continues to be incredible since he's been here.
Yeah. Can we just go back to last week's episode and drop in the audio from that discussion on Emmett Jones? Because it's the same thing. I mean, this is what Emmett Jones has been doing. He's killing it on the recruiting trail. Like you said, full receivers in this class. Emmanuel Choice is only a 3-star right now. I imagine he's going to get a bump during his senior year if he continues on this track. He did not have a 3-star offer list by any means. But you add him to a group that's got a trio of 4-star composite wide receivers in Elijah Thomas, Marcus Harris, who they got last week, and Grayson Harris. I mean, it's another strong group, and they just continue to, like we said last week, stack talent in that wide receiver room. Emmanuel Choice is 6'4", 195 pounds, a guy who might still be growing a little bit. I really like the comparison that Colin dropped on the board yesterday. Said he kind of reminds him of Jaden Gibson. Mm-hmm. If they found another Jaden Gibson, I mean, give Emmett Jones his money right now, because he's that we talked about. He wasn't like the number one guy last year, but when they threw the ball his way, he made plays, and is probably in for a bigger role this season. But again, man, the job that Emmett Jones has done in a short time here, cannot be overstated.
Yeah, I mean, that Jaden Gibson is exactly what I was going to talk about. It's like the same exact thing almost. A guy that's coming in at 6'4" already, like that's incredible. I mean, have the size like that, and you have a couple of those guys now on this Oklahoma wide receiver staff, and it's like you have those guys for those situations that you absolutely need a pass or something like that. You're going to have like guys like what Drake Stoops was with Deion Burks. You're going to have a every down type of back where you can always hit him underneath and things like that. But having those guys you can go over top with and having that size obviously it plays a really big help, because a lot of cornerbacks are not that tall. Like it's a lot easier to just catch the pass if you're throwing to a guy like that. And so it makes sense right here. This is a very good pickup for OU.
Yeah, Marcus Harris, Grayson Harris, Elijah Thomas, in-state. Derek Chakota, and now Emmanuel Choice. And like I said, they may not be done. They have another guy they're still chasing in Cortez Mills, who's a guy who was in town for Champion Barbecue, I believe. And you saw some of the other guys on Twitter kind of actively campaigning for him over the weekend, saying, hey, we got another spot for you. So it's just ridiculous. I mean, if you can bring him in, and Cortez Mills, if I'm familiar, is a 4-star guy from Florida. I mean, you bring him in, you look at, what they've done, stacking class after class under Emmett Jones. I mean, the depth of the receiver room, it's already great. We've talked about that a bunch of times, but it's going to be absurd in a couple of years for these quarterbacks, Jackson Arnold and obviously Michael Hawkins and maybe Kevin Sperry. I mean, it's going to be nuts if you continue to stack classes the way that Emmett Jones is right now. So we'll keep an eye on that. But 4 receivers in and maybe a 5th one. They're going to keep courting Cortez Mills, but unbelievable. So another nice get for Emmett Jones. Do want to make sure also, obviously that's the first one on the board at a Champion Barbecue. There will be more. It was a fruitful weekend for Oklahoma. We're expecting some more. But one that's coming up today, and again, depending on when you're listening or watching this, but 4 o'clock on Monday, Jaden O'Neal, we've talked about on the show, 2026 quarterback, he's going to be announcing his commitment on the 24/7 Sports YouTube channel, the national YouTube channel. So might want to mosey on over there at 4 o'clock Central Time, I should specify. Probably some good news coming for Oklahoma there at 4 o'clock. So that's another big fish in the 2026 class. A lot of things going well for Oklahoma right now on that end of things. So keep an eye out for that later on today at about 4 o'clock. Let's shift over to the Diamond to kind of wrap up with the transfer portal for both softball and baseball. We're still waiting on Najee Kennedy. Right? We covered that last week. That's the big one hanging out there that was just consuming people right now. But Patty Gasso and the staff are staying busy elsewhere. They made 2 additions over the weekend. James, obviously, you're all over it. Our softball guy here. I'll let you kind of dive into them as they addressed a couple of needs, right? As they lose some pieces off last year's team, all those seniors. they filled a couple of holes. Dive into the two players they picked up here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was about middle of last week when I, kind of did more digging on Nigel Kennedy, trying to figure out what the timeline could be and things like that. And as of right now, I do think it's going to be a couple of weeks, if not, because I think she's taking her time with this decision now. It's not just you're going to get her type of situation anymore. It's like she's going to take her time. So we're still wait and see on that. But yeah. I was hearing a lot about, 2 or 3 other players, like they could happen this weekend type of thing. And I put that on our board, our VIP board. So if you were there, I mean, you kind of knew who was all going to come this weekend. And the two ladies that Oklahoma got, because I was hearing from multiple sources, like multiple. I was like, okay, this seems like something I need to be on top of. I had stories pre-written, ready to go, just waiting for announcements at that point. And, Oklahoma got Isabella Emmerling, a catcher. They obviously needed a catcher. They don't have any catchers on this team that have already played college softball. And so getting her was a very big deal, very, very big get for them. And so that started kind of like the weekend that I thought OU was going to have. And then they had another one Sunday where they got Abby Dayton, who some people had thought she was going to be the first one to go. But, you still get her an outfielder that you obviously need with Riley Boone and Jada Coleman graduating out and things like that. And so you bring somebody in with more experience, as we talked about before with the other one. So you're going to have Cassidy Pickering out there, who played a lot in the outfield for OU. You're going to have Abby Dayton out there as well. And Hannah Core, who just had her second back surgery. You would think she would get the starting spot at this point, but Maya Bland could be the one to shift in there because we don't know how that back surgery has gone so far. And so just seeing what I've seen, from the outfield, that's what I think the projected lineup could be out there and things like that. But it was going to be an eventful week, as I talked about a lot on the board. It was going to be one of those weeks you pay attention to on the softball side, because I heard so many sources saying there's going to be like 2 or 3 coming. So just be ready for that.
For sure. Obviously with Emmerling, like you said, it fills a void. I mean, you didn't have a catcher. Kinsey Hansen's been your catcher forever. And she's no longer here. And she had a really nice season last year. But Abby Dayton in particular is one of those, I feel like, for other programs around the country have to just be like, come on, because she's like a 2-time all Pac-12 player at Utah. And I believe career batting average of like over 400,
405. Yeah, 405. So it's really, really good from what she's done. I mean, like I listed all the awards in the commit. Like, I mean, she's very well acknowledged for what she's done.
I mean, you're not going to just 1-for-1 swap and replace Jada Coleman and Kinsey Hansen, but pretty good. Pretty good job. So again, obviously Candy's the big fish that they're waiting on, but they're making hay elsewhere in the portal, and they will continue to do so. Keep up with 24/7 Sports, Sooners Illustrated. James been on top of the portal movement, and there will be more. And so keep an eye out as they continue to add to that roster. I've been doing the same on the baseball side of things. Good start for them in the portal. They've lost a decent number of guys. Nobody overly earth-shattering so far. The biggest name so far would be Isaiah Lane, who's a guy that I think most people thought probably was going to be a starter for them next year. He was just a freshman this year, had some kind of spot duty when guys were hurt, and played pretty well. But the longest short of it, from what I was told, is Isaiah Lane was more interested in sees a better future for himself at shortstop. That's not going to happen in Oklahoma because Jackson Wills has got that job completely locked up for a couple of years. So Isaiah Lane's in the portal, but they did make a big addition on the mound over the weekend with Cameron Johnson from LSU. This is a huge get. This kid was extremely highly touted out of high school. Big, tall left-hander, 6'4", 6'5", I believe. Can throw some serious gas. He's nasty. He could have went pro out of high school. Was very highly touted. Was, I think, a top 40-ish prospect in the country out of high school into that draft. But decided he wanted to play collegiately, went to LSU. Had an okay so. I mean, statistically, his first season this year as a true freshman isn't good. But you have to look kind of beyond the stats because he only threw 9 total innings. So that's going to inflate your ERA really quickly if you have even 1 or 2 bad outings. And his first couple of outings didn't go real well, but after that, he kind of settled in, was much better the rest of the year. And his strikeout numbers are really what's going to catch your eyes because he had 13 strikeouts in just 9 innings. That's a really, really strong number. I mean, that's not a high enough innings total to count for like nation's leaders, but that's a K per 9 that would be top 20 in the country if you extrapolate that over the course of an entire season. So he's got nasty stuff with what Skip Johnson can do for him. That's a great pickup. And you kind of look at that team is replacing a lot on the mound, offensively, I'm trying to say, in the lineup. But on the mound, I mean, you got both Witherspoons are back. Brant Stevens is back. Jacob Gold's the guy who they're really excited about. He's back. Yeah, this kid Cameron Johnson. There's some bullpen pieces. I mean, the pitching side of it, you're still waiting on what Braden Davis is going to do. I'm assuming he's going to go pro, but you're still waiting there. Even if you lose Braden Davis, who was your ace this year, you have got some serious pieces to kind of build with and work with pitching on the pitching side of it. And with Skip Johnson's pitching background, what he does developing guys, you kind of always feel confident that he's going to get the most out of guys. So this was a huge pickup. Huge pickup. There's a couple other names that they're very close to closing in on and making that official. Kind of like James said, if you're a VIP member, I've shared those names on there that I think are pretty close to happening. So mosey on over there, subscribe. Our Champion Barbecue special is still going on, I think, through the end of today. Maybe I misspoke there. Through the end of today, right?
I think so.
Pretty sure it is. If it's not, oh well. You should still sign up, become a VIP member. You should be all on board, all this recruiting stuff. Colin's crushing it, and then we got the portal stuff, team stuff, and all that. So there you have it. I think that's it for now. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like I said, and the podcast. Be back. Colin and I are going to do the show on Wednesday this week. He's going out of town for a 7-on-7 event. So we're going to do Wednesday. Got a lot of recruiting stuff to get into with him coming out of Champion Barbecue. Some other big names that they're chasing and all that good stuff. Again, Jaden O'Neill today at 4. Keep an eye out for that. Moves on over to Sooners Illustrated for full coverage of that when that happens. And then the three of us will get back with you next week to hit all the latest elsewhere for all these sports. So that's it for now. Appreciate you guys as always. For Tom Green, James D. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you guys next time right back here on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.